Yeah, I've heard that this is the Norwegian style, right? That you present yourself. So where should I start? I was born on the 21st. No, we'll not go that deep. Few facts and figures. We came with my family to Norway 2 months ago, but beforehand I was adjunct professor at the Leadership and Organizational Behavior department. Originally I'm from Slovenia, and the topics which are fascinating to me are, as you will see, mostly related to the prosocial and proactive behaviors of people within organizations. So basically topics like creativity, innovation, motivation, knowledge. Those are my my pearls, so to say. And I would like to thank you this morning for coming and investing an hour of your life to understand, or maybe to deepen understanding on the one very fascinating topic called prosocial motivation. I hope that by the end of this short talk, we will share the understanding that it's different, that it's unconventional, and yet most powerful way of moving ourselves within the organizations. This is the proposed agenda. Basically, I would like to invite you throughout the course of presentation instead of waiting towards the end. So whenever you have an idea, a question, a comment, or you would say that you completely disagree, go ahead, please share your thoughts. So I would like to have it as interactive as possible. But in terms of the proposed agenda, first of all, just to put everybody up to the same level, I would like to introduce the topic of prosocial motivation in a slightly informal way. Then as a second part, I would like to show why does it matter at all. So what's the purpose of understanding it and working around it. The third part of presentation would be related to the toolbox. So what is it possible for us as members of our organizations to do about it? How can we facilitate it in particular? And in the fourth part, a little bit of reflection, especially in two roles, in roles of leaders and of course also in roles of researchers. So what's the point? What does it all mean to us? This is a short, let's say, summary of an experiment that Adam Grant at University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Business has done. It is basically a situation where they have actually a call center, and this call center is collecting funds for the scholarships, right? For the scholarship for underprivileged students, talented but underprivileged students. Their task is important, I would say, but it's also highly challenging because they need to call alumni in the middle of their dinner, and they are not supposed to hang up until they said no 3 times, right? Cute part, I would say. So, and the figures also show, right? They had enormous fluctuations. So basically, on the one job position, they had 4 people throughout the course of the year. It's terrible, right? You cannot do any training, anything at all. So what do we do around it? What would you do, actually? That's the question. Not everybody at the same time, please. So let's go one by one. Any ideas? So let's have a volunteer. Jesse, you know this one, right? You do. Okay, you're not allowed to speak, but you can point to a person that does not know and you would like him or her to answer. This is a technique called cold call, by the way. Please.
Share stories with each other.
Okay, share stories. for the purpose of...
Success and not successful stories.
Okay, so the best practices, worst practices to learn from your colleagues. The direction is a very good one, but we are not yet there. Okay, so to learn from colleagues, please.
If you're going to learn from your colleagues, I think that you cannot give like bonuses to the people that do it best, because you need an environment where people will want to collaborate, want to help each other, and not give them prizes if they are the best.
So you would want to connect learning from colleagues to some kind of change in the reward system, right? To move it from individual to the team-based collaborative level. Okay, let's try something more, please.
Well, you can also ask them why they quit.
Ask who? Oh, the guys that quit. Exit interviews.
Yeah, ask them what is it that's going on, what are the challenges, and ideally ask them before they quit.
Okay, entry interviews instead of exit interviews. Yeah, that's one of the ideas. Yeah, in the circulation, absolutely. Let's try some more.
Improve their social life at work.
Improve social life.
More interesting.
Okay.
Breaks and
So who need
parties.
parties? Okay, I like that. Who needs to organize that? Who is there in charge to organize parties and arrange their social life, take care of the reward systems, facilitate learning? Whose role is that? Sorry? Leader. Okay, so what can leader do? I apologize. Can you just speak up a little?
The leader has to basically facilitate an environment where the individual feels like they can talk to this person.
Mm-hmm.
The leader has to understand what the job they're actually doing is, so they don't feel like they don't like he doesn't know what they're doing, why it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Help them understand the alumni, maybe, like why would they want to donate.
Okay, now you're talking. There are two things, right? First of all, this is a conventional wisdom out there that leaders need to inspire, right? That was the first part of your answer. And guess what? That part backfired, right? There's also a logical and research-based explanation for that. Basically, when you try to convey an ideological message, right, and this is a message why your work matters and to whom it matters and so on, leaders often stumble upon the barrier of suspicion that there is a vested motive that they have, right? They want only to benefit themselves, they want to benefit their organizational performance, or simply that, leaders, excuse my English, suck at, rhetorical way of conveying the message. So basically they have replicated this experiment on several occasions, and actually always it backfired, right? So forget about inspiring leaders. And the second part of your answer is the one actually where the most, let's say, the most power lies. So they brought in the beneficiary, right? They have spoken to not just alumni in general, but to the recipients of these scholarships, and they have done it let's say, with two mechanisms. One was simply asking an ex-student that was able to afford to study at such a prestigious and expensive university to write a letter, short letter, what was the change in my life, right, as a result of your work. And after, the group that has read this letter basically tried harder and also succeeded while doing that. So basically 142% improvement in their, in terms of the time they spent, so almost half more effort invested. And in terms of the results, they generated 171% more revenue, right? And even more effectively, was a 5-minute meeting with the next student, recipient of this donation, and it's amazing, really, because the improvement was fourfold. Okay, it increased from 2,500 USD to $9,600 on one of the occasions. And they were so surprised, also Adam Grant and his colleagues, that they decided to replicate this experiment on several occasions with firemen, with students, with several different, let's say, populations. And in every single situation, the improvement was several-fold. Okay, so it's powerful and it's tested. And of course, this is not where the research on prosocial motivation started. It has a deeper roots. And just to provide you with a little bit of overview of the field, the idea that motivation is relational and other focused has been around for some time. So, and also you can see, first publications in 91 or 87. But in a nutshell, if we try to define what prosocial motivation is, it is this, right? It's desire to protect and promote well-being of others. And it's important because we know that it has quite good, implications both in terms of organizational and individual outcomes. So you will see words like innovation, work engagement, knowledge sharing, sales accuracy, let's say success in negotiations, many of the organizationally relevant topics that are related to both giving and helping orientation. The second good news for leaders is that it's quite inexpensive, right? No big investments in terms of time or money are needed. And the third important part is that it is distinct from altruism and from self-interest. Meaning, in other words, that if we engage in giving behaviors, it doesn't mean that we forget about ourselves, right? Because there is a little conventional wisdom out there that if you give too much, it eventually hurts yourself. But we'll get there in an instance. Here's an overview of what are the antecedents, consequences, as well as moderators, and again, how we can influence basically prosocial motivation. One of the most, say, promising arenas related to this is the domain of relational job design. So relational job design, for instance, in a way that you design jobs so that they are tightly connected to primary beneficiaries. Right? So the Wharton fundraiser was an example of such a job design. There is very interesting piece by, again, Adam Grant and our co-author, John Sumanth. They have tested prosocial motivation and persistent performance and productivity. So what's the link between those with firemen and, again, this fundraiser? Please.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, since it's a moderating factor between intrinsic motivation and
creativity. Yeah.
So it's a separate construct from intrinsic motivation?
Yes, that's a very good question. Yeah, we know that. And in terms of intrinsic motivation, we know two things. It interplays with intrinsic motivation, and intrinsic motivation strengthens the prosocial motivation, right? It's a very good question, because sometimes we think that it's more or less the same things, and it's not. We know that these are two distinct constructs as well. So we know from work of Anders Dusvik and Bort Kuvas, people who you know, I'm certain of. They have done work in 2008 that intrinsic motivation basically strengthens the prosocial motivation in the context of training, that was. And we also know from Adam Grant and Barry, where is it? Somewhere. So basically we know from them No, it's the Grant and Sumant actually. We know that intrinsic motivation and the prosocial motivation, when they operate together, this is the situation where the outcomes are the strongest, meaning that these firemen would persevere, they would perform better, and also the call center operators were most productive. Please.
Just to make sure I get it, intrinsic motivation is motivation that you have inside yourself for your personal goals, and prosocial is because of external forces or external people.
Yeah, that's a blunt.
Roughly,
Yeah. If you want to know more about intrinsic motivation, have a look at the self-determination. It's not just intrinsic, extrinsic motivation, but there are several, layers in between. So that this is the reference to be made, and those two references are the ones to make distinction between prosocial motivation and the intrinsic motivation. So it's different, and it's powerful when combined. Okay, did I answer your questions? Okay. So this is how we can impact, right, the prosocial motivation. This is why it is important, and this is the moderating role that it has. There's a fascinating book that came out in April 2013 this year by Adam Grant, and basically he is exploring the factors that have impact on career success of people, right? In a nutshell, that is. So, and he attributes it not to the classical ways of career success, like, education or your mentor or luck or whatever, but to the factor of your reciprocity style. So how do you interact with others at work, for instance, right? So there are 3 reciprocity styles that he makes distinction between: takers, matchers, and givers. So I mentioned a little while ago this conventional wisdom that givers are the ones that basically become doormats, right? So if you give too much, you don't have time for or energy or whatever for your own work. So this is it's always there, it's present, right, in situations like that. Then again, we become discouraged to see when takers are, people that are, I don't know, cheating, on taxes or whatever, that they are successful in life and so on. And then, most people rely on the reciprocity style of matching. So just as a precaution, I will only give to those that will give it back to me straight away, right? And the encouraging news about this research is actually that, yes, givers do become doormats, but the encouraging part is that they are also the ones at the top of the career ladder, right? So what's the distinction between those givers that are at the top and those givers that are at the bottom? One of them is an idea of otherish and against selfless giving. So otherish giving means that, yes, we do invest in our knowledge. For instance, we do share our knowledge with colleagues, we do help, but we don't forget also about our own goals, our own ambitions, our own purpose of being within the organization. So this is, if we tie it back to the theory, this is where I've been talking of the distinction between self and other interest, that those are 2 independent constructs. So one can be high on both at the same time. Please.
I'm wondering if you can really distinguish between taker and giver, because it's not that this person's only giving, because this person is getting
Yeah.
kind of dependent from the other person and then kind of power.
Yeah, it's a good point. So basically you are referring, if I understand well, to the distinction between trait and behavior, correct? So that you can behave towards different people in different ways.
Yeah, and you get a network, so it's not just that you just do it because you're such a nice person.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah, you're right. It's a simplification if we put people in 3 categories and call them like that, right? So we can be, for instance, I can behave in a matching way at my work towards certain people. I can also behave in a giving way in another role at home, right? And that is not an unusual scenario, by the way. So yeah, it's so if you want to look deeper in the trait and state-like definitions of prosocial motivations, this is where you can go, right? But I don't want to go that much of a detail unless you feel a particular urge to do that, maybe later on. In terms of, just for the fun of it, right, Adam has created a web page, and at this web page you have also one survey in which you can, I think it has 20 items or so, 20 scenarios, and you can identify your reciprocity styles. Even more fun is when you ask others, like, I don't know, wife, husband, boyfriend, boss, colleagues, to rate you if you're there. If you're there, that it's a very informative, channel, definitely. So, other issue instead of self-giving, another important vehicle to utilize the power of giving is to understand the impact that your work has on others, right? We've heard of a fundraiser example. One very simple and very informative example is the example of Israeli radiologists. Turner and colleagues have done this pretty simple experiment where basically, so this guy Turner, he's a radiologist himself, and he was always bothered by this idea when he got, MR scan. Who's the person? What is his broader situation? He didn't have enough information to diagnose only based on the MR scan. Okay, so what he has done, he tried to imagine that this is his father that he's doing diagnosis for, right? In order to, strengthen the purpose of his work. But then he came up with an idea that it's really, really good to have a picture of this person. So he created an experiment where a certain experimental group of radiologists had also a photography of a patient next to their MR scan, and the others did not. So it was, as you can imagine, it was a significant improvement in terms of their accuracy and speed of diagnosis as well. And the minute they took pictures away, the productivity dropped again, which was not the case with the fundraiser experiment, because there the impact lasted for another half a year. Anybody that knows who Red Hot Chili Peppers are? Okay. So this is Flea, and Flea is a bassist over there. Flea is a bassist in the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's also the only person that has been in the band from the very beginning. And people say that world of music, world of rock and roll is the world of takers. They take the light, they take the attention, they take the credits, right? So it's about me, I, and myself, basically. He's not that kind. He's known to be a genuine giver by many others. For instance, he has a big and diverse network of collaborations. Like he's been working with Alanis Morissette. He has been working with Radiohead. He has been part of Jane's Addiction, for instance, right? He is also very, very active for, I think, 12 years in a row in a non-governmental organization, non-profit organization that it's basically investing into the music education for underprivileged. Can you hear me, by the way? Yes. No? Is it bothering? Music? Okay. You got the idea, right? It was snow, yeah. So, so he has a network diverse network of collaborations. He is investing into, he's giving to a broader community, and it's not a one-time deal. It's has been there 20 years, and he has been 12 years, and he has been very much low profile about it. They also say that he is a very energetic person, meaning that he has these enthusiastic exclamations of enthusiasm that this is great, this is awesome. So he is energizing people around him, and he's also creating a safe environment. You would see, if you saw the whole picture of the band, he's not the front man. He's not there. I mean, in the spotlight. He's bassist. Bassist is third rank in the hierarchy of a band, right? Right after the guitar, the solo player, and he was also able to bring the best out in others. So there's one statement from there, John Frusciante, which is a guitarist from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and basically he tried a solo career, and this career was a flop, and then he realized that he has a lot to attribute to Flea, right, himself. And there's another statement by Flea from the interview in Rolling Stone magazine in 2006, and his observation basically that, when things went well, it was because they were giving, and the other way around. So in terms of his productivity, he was rated, he's in the Hall of Fame. He was rated second best bassist in the world by the Rolling Stone magazine, so on and so forth. So a very successful musician, and a bit less successful actor, but that's a different story. So as an example, maybe from an industry that it's less close to us, but still very much related to the world of business. And there's another scenario, right? There's a scenario where takers meet matchers. This is a short summary of findings that my ex-PhD student Matej Černe, Kristina Nerstad, and Anders Dusvik, and my humble self created, forthcoming. And basically, we have found out through the two studies that if you take two people, right, a diet, and if we talk about knowledge hiding and creativity, then if person A decides to hide knowledge, person B is aware of that, this creates distrust, a retaliation, right? So remember, this is a taker, this is a matcher, and basically this leads to decreased creativity of the very first individual. So we call this paper, "What goes around comes around," right, as a message. So there are remedies, of course, how organizations can work around that, but I think the most important part is to make it very visible that if you decide to play the game, do expect that it will come around. Please.
Do we know anything about the personality types?
Yeah, controlled. I mean, in this particular line of research, we have controlled for many things, right? And in terms of connection to the prosocial motivations, yes, there are some evidence, but in terms of personalities, it's not much that you can do about it, right? So so I find it personally less interesting as a researcher, because usually we want to know something about the phenomena that we can intervene, right? So then job design is such a thing, and personalities are. Maybe one time in career, and this is when you let people enter your organization, you can have impact, but that is a relatively rare occasion. But we do control for that, naturally. Any other questions so far? Was I clear enough? Was I boring? Or no? You're a very kind audience. Thank you for that. So what can we do about it? The Leaders Toolbox is the third part of this presentation. Basically, there are two groups of, let's say, interventions. One would be related to this external beneficiary contact practices. So recall the fundraiser experiment and the, understanding the purpose of our work through the mouth and eyes of our end users. So this is the name of this game, and we can do a lot of things, right? This is not an end list. We can use end user meetings. We have you will see from Videru that they are using this ukeslut. I hope that I pronounced it well. At Ends Week. So basically, they're collecting stories from their customers. It can go both ways, right? It can be praise, or it can be also critique, but it's a powerful information of what did we do well and what did we do wrong, and what's the purpose of what we do. So this is an example of Videro, and they are also, as you might know, awarded several times for their service in the overall world categories. So this is the example of radiologists, a control group that has done it the business as usual, and the experimental group that already also saw the person at stake. And there was a 56% actually improvement there. In terms of internal giving behavior practices, the list, as we see it, is even a bit longer. I would like to expose some of the tools that are out there. One is a tool called Reciprocity Ring. It's a tool developed by Wayne Baker from University of Michigan. And it functions on a system of generalized reciprocity, right? So people come into group, they come up with their issues, the problems that they would like others to help them solve, and then there's a process through which basically you come to at least 3 solutions per one request. So it's a network and psychological phenomenon, right? People want to look good in that group, people want to contribute, and it creates a snowball, a positive snowball effect in essence. Another fascinating exercise is an exercise by Justin Burke from Wharton, Jane Dutton from Michigan, and Amy Vershnevsky from Yale, and they created an exercise basically on job crafting. Job crafting is a form of a proactive organizational behavior where you fit your job to the needs of work. Basically, you don't wait for others to be told, but you act proactively, and you arrange either relationships who you need to work with, the task itself. You arrange also the cognitive structure of your work. So those are the 3 dimensions of job crafting. And we know that it has many beneficial outcomes for the organizations. So then, Suti, who you've met 2 months ago, I saw on the web pages, and Matej and myself, we are working on a paper that is connecting this idea of autonomy expectations, the fit between leaders and subordinates, and how do they affect job crafting, right? So what we have found out is that, first of all, if there's a fit, this leads to more job crafting. And this is not a surprising fact if the fit is at high level, right? So if the leader and subordinate agree that one needs to act that one needs to be autonomous at work, this leads to the most job crafting behavior. Surprising is maybe that even if they agree that you're here to do the job and I will tell you how to do it, right? So if the leader and subordinate agree that the autonomy should be low, this also leads to slightly less high levels of job crafting. The worst 2 scenarios are the scenarios where leaders think that subordinates should have high autonomy, but the subordinates would disagree, and the other way around, right? That subordinates think that they should have autonomy, and leaders think that they know how, when, and why things should be done, right? So if there's a discrepancy, this leads to less autonomy, less job crafting. So one message is that leaders themselves should exercise a little bit more of a pro-social motivation in order to understand what is the expectation, autonomy expectation. And the second part is related to the moderator, called, it's Gary Uckel's work, so work on leader coalition influence behavior. So this is one of the influence styles that are out there. And we have, out of all these influence tactics that leaders can basically utilize, we have found out that coalition building is the one that is most impactful. Meaning that, again, leaders can deliver their message by building coalitions way stronger than by doing it themselves. So there's a link to the inspiration and the primary beneficiary exposure there. Another very powerful tool and a very simple one is are two words, tusen tak, thank you, right? Hvala lepa. They mean basically, there's again a research, Francesca Gino and Adam, basically they have found out that expressing gratitude is stimulating pro-social behaviors. I can share a story with you if you want to hear it. You know, when you move countries, this means a lot of different kind of situations, and one was also with insurance companies. If you know, you're new to the system, you're a threat, you're an unknown variable, so this means that you need to show a lot of papers in a short time in order to prove your worth, basically, meaning you know, the credit worthiness. So for that purpose, I needed help. I needed help from my ex-insurance company, and I was fortunate, very fortunate enough to meet two people that obviously behave in a giving way. They had no hidden agenda, you know, I'm not customer anymore, but they were very quick to help on several iterations and so on. So I decided to do an unconventional thing, and that is to say thank you. I mean, not just to them, but to say thank you through the formal channels up in the hierarchy, and it felt good. You know, it felt very good. The word came around, so it created a lot of good vibrations out there. So I plan to repeat those kind of things. Yeah, it's short, but it's effective again, and I'm sure that it has a positive momentum also for the people working there. This is a very short excerpt from work of Arne Carlsen and his colleagues Stuart Clegg and Reidar Gjersvik in terms of connecting pro-social motivation to the above average excellent work, idea work, right? Connecting the pro-social to the creativity, and he's playing with these words of rapid prototyping, activating drama, craving wonder, right? So these momentums in the idea work where you engage others in order to be really creative. So for those of you that haven't had the chance, I invite you to read their book on idea work. It's a great read, and it's also not you know, it's not to be neglected, but it's on it uses Norwegian cases, right? I don't know whether you are as skeptical as Slovenians are for the US-based knowledge, Jesse, sorry, but we always try to hear something that is contextual, that it's close to our reality and our specifics. But people are people in a way. We know also that. So, right, so these are the examples of pro-social practices that are related to creativity. Okay. So what does it all mean? It can mean a lot of things to different groups of people. As you might imagine, it has strong implications for HR practices. It has strong implications for how we negotiate. It has, of course, strong implications also for leadership. So this is a rhetorical question, no need to answer, but I see the distinction between this idea of leaders as inspiring ones and leaders as the one to facilitate message from end users, as a dilemma between a steamboat and ultrasound airplane. Okay, and also a few words on our research agenda. We are working on a project, basically, project proposal that is connecting these giving behavior practices and beneficiary contact practices, so the internal and external part of the story, as a facilitator of boundaryless innovation. So connecting prosocial motivations of people at work and people around organizations to the innovation.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Know this one?
Yes.
Okay, so as a wrap up, I wish that also this little talk could serve as inspiration for you to forge many high quality and energizing interactions with colleagues at work. I also hope that it sparked some ideas, and in case it does, this is where you can reach us. Once more, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, do we have some time extra for some questions and discussion? Mona,
Yeah.
we do?
Yeah,
Oh,
we have time.
okay, so let's use the time. It can only mean two things, that you're silent, right? I hope for the second one. Else we can just spend some time for coffee and chat in smaller circles. So thank you very much, everybody.